Desde la Universidad Militar Nueva Granada, en Bogotá, Colombia, transmite UMNG Radio. UMNG Radio. Una emisora alternativa, cultural e independiente. Desde la Universidad Militar Nueva Granada. Esta es UMNG Radio.
Tune in and speak up. Hello, English learners. Want to learn something interesting whilst having fun? Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast where you'll get to know this beautiful language in depth. Each week, we'll dive into exciting topics, share practical tips, and tell you fascinating English language stories. So whether you're studying, going to work, or just relaxing, connect, listen, and let's make English part of your world. Wherever you are, whenever you want, just hit play, tune in and listen up. Tune in to UMNG Radio every Tuesday from 11 a.m. till noon. Don't just learn English, live it.
Lo que ocurre en la universidad, los acontecimientos y sus protagonistas están en UMNG Radio.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada, where we explore curious stories, surprising facts, and cultural insights from around the world, all through the lens of English learning. This is the podcast where unusual events from history and culture become your classroom for English practice. I'm Jorge Bermudez, teacher of English at the Department of Multicultural Studies at UMNG, part of the School of Education and Humanities. I'll be your guide through some of the most unusual and thought-provoking topics, from important celebrations to forgotten inventions and strange scientific discoveries. Whether you're learning English as a second language or just love learning something new, this podcast is for you. Ready to improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and engage in meaningful conversations? Then grab your headphones, tune in, and let's speak up.
Lo que ocurre en la universidad, los acontecimientos y sus protagonistas están en UMNG Radio.
Today in Tune In and Speak Up, Thanksgiving, the origins, the myths, the meaning of the celebration, and why it is important for anyone interested in learning English. So, welcome. Let's begin with the introduction, looking beyond the holiday. Thanksgiving is one of the most famous holidays in the United States. Many people imagine big family dinners, delicious food, and people saying what they are thankful for. But behind those happy images, there is a much deeper story. For people learning English, knowing how Thanksgiving is important and why is not only about learning words like turkey, pumpkin pie, or harvest. It is also about understanding how history and culture are connected to language. When we learn English, we also learn about the traditions, beliefs, and experiences of the people who speak. Thanksgiving shows many parts of American life. It is about family, generosity, and community. But it also has another side, one that includes conflict and misunderstanding between different groups in history. Learning about both sides help us understand not only the words people use, but also the feelings and discussions that the holiday brings today. Even though most Latin American countries don't celebrate Thanksgiving, the holiday is well known around the world through movies, series, and social media. We often see happy families sitting around a table with a big turkey and beautiful decorations. But are those pictures real? Or do they hide some parts of the story? In this episode, we'll look beyond the traditional images. We'll learn how the celebration started, how it changed over time, and what it really means for many Americans today. You don't need to celebrate Thanksgiving to learn from it. By understanding its story, you can see how history, culture, and language work together. And that's one of the best parts of learning English. Okay, let's talk about the real origins. Leido. No. When people talk about the first Thanksgiving, they often imagine a peaceful meal between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people in 1621. In school books and movies, it's usually shown as a simple and friendly scene, people sitting together, smiling, and sharing food. But the real history is more complex, and it reflects the challenges and misunderstandings that came with the meeting of two very different cultures. The Pilgrims were a group of English settlers who left their country in 1620 on a small ship called the Mayflower. They were seeking religious freedom and a new life away from England. After more than 2 months crossing the rough Atlantic Ocean, they finally arrived on the coast of what is now Plymouth in Massachusetts in November, just before winter. The journey was extremely hard. The ship was crowded, food was limited, and storms were constant. Many people became sick during the voyage, and when they landed, they had no houses, little food, and no knowledge of how to survive in the new land. That first winter was devastating. About half of the 102 passengers died from cold, hunger, or disease. By the time spring arrived, the survivors were weak and uncertain about how they would continue. Then something unexpected happened. They met the Wampanoag Nation, the native people who had lived in that region for thousands of years. One Wampanoag man, Tisquantum, whom the settlers called Squanto, played a crucial role. Years earlier, he had been captured by English explorers, taken to Europe, and later returned home, which is why he spoke some English. Squanto taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn using seeds with a small fish as fertilizer, how to find edible plants, and how to fish and hunt local animals. These lessons were essential for their survival. Without his help, the colony might not have lasted another year. So let's talk about the real origins in this slide. In the autumn of 1621, after a successful harvest, the Pilgrims decided to celebrate. They invited their Wampanoag neighbors to join them in a feast that lasted for 3 days. Around 90 Wampanoag men came, including their leader, Massasoit. Together, they shared food such as corn, fish, deer, and possibly wild turkey. It was a harvest celebration, a moment to give thanks for the crops that would keep them alive through the coming winter. However, it's important to note that the event was not called Thanksgiving, and it was not a national holiday. It was simply one of many kinds of harvest festivals common among both native peoples and Europeans. Long before Europeans arrived, many Native American communities already held ceremonies of gratitude to honor nature and the earth's gifts. In the following decades, the relationship between Native Americans and English settlers changed dramatically. As more colonists arrived, they began taking more land and resources, leading to conflict, disease, and displacement of indigenous communities. Some later days of Thanksgiving were declared by colonial governments to celebrate military victories against Native people, a painful fact that explains why Thanksgiving remains a controversial holiday for many today. During the 1600s and 1700s, English colonies in North America continued to hold various local days of Thanksgiving. But these were usually religious events, not harvest feasts. People attended church services to thank God for protection, peace, or survival after difficult times like droughts or wars. The meaning of Thanksgiving was still changing. It was not yet a shared national celebration. The version of Thanksgiving that most Americans recognize today only took shape 2 centuries later. In the 19th century, writers, politicians, and educators began to use the story of the Pilgrims and Native Americans as a symbol of unity and the birth of a nation. This romantic version emphasized cooperation and gratitude while often ignoring the violence and loss that Native peoples experienced after colonization. Finally, in 1863, during the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln declared a national day of Thanksgiving, encouraging Americans to give thanks and hope even in a time of division. His message transformed the holiday into something more universal, a day for reflection, family, and national identity. So, when we think about the first Thanksgiving, it is important to see beyond the simple image of friendship. The real story was a meeting of two worlds, one arriving, one already established, and both changed forever by that encounter. Understanding the full story helps us appreciate not just what Thanksgiving means, but also how memory, culture, and history shape the traditions people continue today. Let's talk about how the tradition evolved. The Thanksgiving that most people celebrate today is very different from the simple harvest meal of 1621. That first gathering between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people lasted 3 days and was mainly about giving thanks for survival and food. But the idea of having a national holiday took more than 200 years to develop, and the celebration changed many times along the way. During the 1700s and early 1800s, there was no single Thanksgiving Day. Instead, different American colonies and states had their own local days of Thanksgiving. These were often religious events declared by local governors or church leaders. People attended special church services, prayed, and gave thanks for special blessings, such as good harvest, military victories, or the end of difficult seasons. These observances reflected the values of early American society, where faith and community were deeply connected. However, because every region celebrated on a different date, there was no sense of a shared national tradition. Some areas marked it in the fall, while others celebrated in winter or spring. This meant that Thanksgiving could mean very different things depending on where you lived. That began to change thanks to one determined woman, Sarah Josepha Hale. She was a writer, editor, and one of the most influential women of the 19th century. Many people know her as the author of the poem Mary Had a Little Lamb, very popular. But she also spent decades promoting Thanksgiving as a unifying national holiday. Starting in the 1840s, she used her magazine. Here in the picture, we have the cover of her magazine, Goddess Lady's Book, to publish recipes, essays, and letters about the importance of having one shared day of gratitude for all Americans. For 17 years, Hale wrote letters to governors, senators, and even 5 different U.S. presidents. She argued that a national day of thanks could bring people together, especially after times of political tension or war. Her campaign was not just about food or celebration, it was about using gratitude as a form of social unity. Finally, in 1863, during the darkest period of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln listened to her plea. In the middle of national conflict, Lincoln saw Thanksgiving as a way to help people remember what still connected them: family, hope, and faith in a better future. That year, he proclaimed the last Thursday of November a national holiday of Thanksgiving. His message encouraged Americans to pause and reflect, even as war divided the country. Many historians believe this was the true beginning of modern Thanksgiving as a symbol of unity and national identity. Decades later, in 1941, the US Congress officially established the holiday by law, setting it permanently on the fourth Thursday of November. That is, in 2 days. By that time, the celebration had already become a major family tradition. Homes across the country prepared big meals, towns held public gatherings, and communities organized charity events to help those in need. The 20th century added even more customs that made Thanksgiving what it is today. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the American football, that is also an important tradition in the celebration, and the food. All of these examples show how traditions evolve. What started as a simple local meal after a harvest became a national celebration filled with parades, sports, music, and shared family moments. Understanding this process helps us see how culture changes over time, adapting to new meanings and new generations, just like language itself, constantly growing and connecting people in new ways. Okay, let's talk about the symbols and customs. When people think about Thanksgiving, they often imagine a big table filled with food: roast turkey, here in the picture, mashed potatoes, in the picture, gravy, and right there, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. These dishes have become part of the classic image of the holiday. But where do they come from and what do they mean? The turkey became the main symbol of Thanksgiving in the 1800s. Wild turkeys were common in North America and they were large enough to feed many people. Early cookbooks and magazines in the 19th century promoted turkey as the perfect centerpiece for a family feast. Today, Americans eat about 45 million turkeys each Thanksgiving, according to the National Turkey Federation. Stuffing, or dressing as it's called in some regions, right here in the lower right-hand corner, is a mix of bread, vegetables, and spices, baked inside or outside the turkey. It represents comfort food, something that reminds people of home and tradition. Cranberry sauce has its roots in the early use of wild cranberries by native peoples in New England long before Europeans arrived. The fruit was used for food, medicine, and for dyeing clothes. It became part of Thanksgiving meals because it grows naturally in the same region where the pilgrims settled. Pumpkin pie, another symbol of the holiday, connects to the idea of harvest. Pumpkins were an important crop for both Native Americans and settlers. The sweet version we know today, with cinnamon and nutmeg, became popular in the 19th century and is now an essential dessert for many families. Beyond food, Thanksgiving has developed other customs. One of the most famous is the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, here on the left down corner. It began in 1924, featuring marching bands, large balloons, and floats. It was first organized by immigrant workers who wanted to celebrate both American and European traditions. Today, millions watch it on TV every year. Macy's, don't forget, is a very important store in the city of New York. Another strong tradition is American football. The first Thanksgiving football game took place in 1876. That's a long time ago. And since then, sports have become part of the celebration for many families. Personally, I think it's the most important game of the year, even more important than Super Bowl in January. Volunteering is also an important part of modern Thanksgiving. Many communities organize food drives and free dinners for people in need. For some, giving to others is the real meaning of the holiday. All these customs, from food to music to community, show how Thanksgiving has grown into a mix of history, family, and culture. Even if you don't celebrate it, learning about these symbols helps you understand how Americans express gratitude and togetherness through tradition. Now, something very important is the most American holiday. For many Americans, Thanksgiving is indeed more meaningful than Christmas, though in a different sense. Here's why. Thanksgiving is not religious, and it doesn't come from Europe or any other culture. It was created in North America, shaped by US history. That makes it a kind of national family ritual shared across religions, regions, and backgrounds. It's all about family and homecoming. Thanksgiving is often described as the biggest travel week of the year. Millions of people fly or drive long distances to be with family, sometimes even more so than at Christmas. The focus isn't on gifts or decorations, but on being together and sharing food. It also has an emotional depth. There's something deeply nostalgic about it. The smell of cooking, the same traditional dishes, turkey, stuffing, pumpkin pie, etc., and stories told every year. It feels rooted in belonging and memory rather than shopping or religion. Even though the next Friday is Black Friday and big crazy shopping begins. Christmas is more commercial. Thanksgiving feels simpler. Many people in the US see Christmas as stressful or overly confused on buying presents. Thanksgiving, by contrast, is one big meal and time of work. Fewer expectations, more warmth. That said, Christmas still dominates the economy and culture. Music, movies, advertising, and public displays all build up from Thanksgiving through December. But when Americans talk about what really feels like home, Thanksgiving often comes first. You can see this reflected in surveys and cultural commentary. For example, a 2023 Pew Research Center report found that 78% of Americans describe Thanksgiving as their favorite or second favorite holiday, ranking slightly above Christmas for emotional importance among adults. Let's talk about gratitude and language. At its heart, Thanksgiving is about being thankful, not just for food or family, but for the things that make life better every day. The idea of giving thanks is old and universal. Many cultures have special days or ceremonies to show appreciation for nature, for people, or for spiritual blessings. In that sense, Thanksgiving is not only an American celebration, it reflects a human emotion we all share: gratitude. In English, there are many ways to express this feeling. The most common one is simply thank you. But there are also other useful expressions that we can learn and that we can see in the slide, such as I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. I'm grateful for my friends and family, for example. Thanks a million. I couldn't have done it without you. These phrases are not only polite, they help build stronger relationships. When you say thank you, you recognize someone's effort or kindness. In conversations, small gestures of gratitude can make communication warmer and more natural. During Thanksgiving, many families have the tradition of sharing what they are thankful for before eating. Each person says something they appreciate. For example, health, family, education, or friendship. It's a simple but powerful habit that reminds people to focus on the positive side of life. In recent years, psychologists have studied the impact of gratitude. Research from the University of California at Davis, led by Dr. Robert Emmons, showed that people who regularly practice gratitude feel happier, sleep better, and handle stress more effectively. This idea connects beautifully with language learning. When you learn a new language, it's important to notice small achievements. Understanding a new word, expressing an idea clearly, or joining a conversation with confidence. Saying, I'm thankful for what I've learned, can help you stay motivated and enjoy the process. So, even if Thanksgiving is not part of your own culture, it offers a great opportunity to practice expressing gratitude in English, a skill that goes beyond grammar or vocabulary. It's a way to connect emotionally, to show empathy, and to celebrate communication itself. Okay, let's talk about the language for this episode, language focus and vocabulary review. Let's take a moment to review some key vocabulary and expressions from today's episode. These words are not only connected to Thanksgiving, but are also common in everyday English when talking about culture, food, and emotions. Our first word is harvest, meaning the time when crops are collected from the fields. So it's the end of the process of preparing the land, planting the seeds, watching the plants grow, producing the fruit, and then collecting that fruit. That is called harvest. In a sentence, we can use this word as Thanksgiving was originally a celebration of the harvest. Remember, the moment when the fruit and vegetables are picked up. Number two, gratitude. The meaning, a feeling of thanks for something good that has happened or that someone has done for you. In our sentence example, we have, she showed her gratitude by writing a thank you card. Number three, feast, meaning a large, that's big, special meal prepared for many people. In our example, we have, families across the U.S. prepare a big feast on Thanksgiving Day. Number four, tradition, meaning a belief or custom that people pass down from generation to generation. In our example sentence, we have, watching the parade is a tradition for many Americans. In Colombia, a unique tradition is, for example, Velitas Day or Candle Night, right? It's a Colombian tradition. I haven't seen that in any other country. Number five, thankful, meaning feeling pleased and grateful for something. In an example, we can say, I'm thankful for my family and friends. Number six, stuffing, meaning a mix of bread, vegetables, and spices often cooked inside the turkey. My example is my favorite Thanksgiving food is stuffing. In Colombia, for example, our traditional food lechona is a good example of pig being stuffed with delicious rice and other ingredients. Number 7, to appreciate, meaning to recognize the good qualities of something or someone, to be thankful for something. In my example, I really appreciate your help. Number 8, togetherness, meaning the feeling of being close to other people. As an example sentence, we have Thanksgiving is a time for family togetherness. Number 9, volunteer, meaning to offer to do something without being paid, usually to help others. In my example, I have many people volunteer at soup kitchens during Thanksgiving. And finally, number 10, parade, meaning a public celebration with people marching, music, and decorated floats. In my example, I have the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is one of the biggest in the world. In Colombia, we have the July 20th Military Parade. Language tip. In English, we often use be thankful for or be grateful for to show appreciation. Both are correct, but thankful is a bit more emotional, while grateful sounds more formal. For example, I'm thankful for my friends. I'm talking about my personal feelings. If I say, I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn English, I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn English, I'm being more formal and my tone is more polite. Okay, there is a surprising song connection. Before we finish, here's a fun cultural surprise that might change the way you think about a very famous song. Did you know that Jingle Bells, one of the most popular Christmas songs in the world, was not written for Christmas at all? The song was actually composed by James Lord Pierpont in 1857. Its original title was The One-Horse Open Sleigh. Sleigh is this carriage that is pulled by a horse over the snow. Pierpont wrote it while living in Savannah, Georgia, and it was intended to be performed during a Thanksgiving concert at his church. Imagine people in the 1850s singing about snow and sleigh rides in the southern United States, where it rarely even snows. At the time, sleigh rides were a symbol of fun and winter adventure, not religion or Christmas. The song describes the simple joy of riding through the snow, laughing and racing with friends. The lively rhythm, the repetition of Jingle All the Way, and the easy melody made it perfect for singing together. The audience loved it, and soon the song spread to other towns. Because it talked about snow and bells, people naturally started performing it during the Christmas season, when the weather fit the lyrics better. Over time, it became part of every Christmas celebration, from caroling in the streets to school plays and movies. If you analyze the lyrics of Jingle Bells, you will discover that there is no mention of Christmas whatsoever. Today, Jingle Bells is known all over the world and has been translated into many languages. It was even one of the first songs broadcast from space in 1965, when astronauts on NASA's Gemini 6 mission played a small prank by pretending they saw Santa's sleigh on the radar and then performed Jingle Bells on a harmonica and bells they had smuggled aboard. Jingle bells, jingle bells. So the next time you hear Jingle Bells, remember, it began as a cheerful Thanksgiving tune. celebrating fun and friendship long before it became a symbol of Christmas joy. Okay, let's go to our final thoughts. As we wrap Okay. As we wrap up this Thanksgiving special, let's take a moment to think about what we have learned. We discovered that Thanksgiving is not only about a big meal or parade, it's a story about people, harvest, and the value of gratitude. We learned where traditions like turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie come from, and how the celebration has changed through time. We also saw that expressing thanks is something everyone can do, no matter where they live or what they celebrate. Even though Thanksgiving is not part of every country's tradition, learning about it helps us understand more about American culture and about language in action. Every thank you, every shared meal, and every act of kindness connects people across cultures. So, as you finish listening today, take a second to think. What are you thankful for? Maybe it's your family, your education, your health, or simply the chance to learn and grow. Remember, gratitude is not only a word, it's a practice. And practicing gratitude in any language makes communication more human and more meaningful. Thank you so much for joining me today on Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the wonderful Thanksgiving celebration. Don't forget to share it with your classmates, friends, or fellow English learners. This season, we have just one episode left, the Christmas special. So we'll continue exploring unusual but meaningful facts about Thanksgiving that show how language, history, and everyday life are deeply connected. If today's episode helped you learn something new or gave you a new perspective on culture and communication, then our mission is accomplished. If you'd like to share your thoughts, reflections, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Your ideas help us improve, and your voice helps shape future episodes, especially now that we're planning the third episode. So you can contribute with ideas and topics that you would like to see and hear exposed here.
Tune in and speak up. Hello, English learners. Want to learn something interesting whilst having fun? Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast where you'll get to know this beautiful language in depth. Each week, we'll dive into exciting topics, share practical tips, and tell you fascinating English language stories. So whether you're studying, going to work, or just relaxing, connect, listen, and let's make English part of your world. Wherever you are, whenever you want, just hit play, tune in and listen up. Tune in to UMNH Radio every Tuesday from 11 a.m. till noon. Don't just learn English, live it.